you everybody for coming in. I'm very grateful to have all my friends here and just wanted to spend some time talking about what we all have in common, a suicide loss of a loved one. And Abby, I was just hoping we could start with you. If you could just share a little bit about Kevin and when you and Kevin met.
We met in high school and we were friends for a while, and then we started dating summer after our sophomore year. He was really, really goofy and just really much a joker. He didn't get very good grades in high school, and he was just one of those people who loved life and got along with everybody. And then he joined the military right after high school, and once he finished his 4 years, he went to college, and that's when he really tried and, was a straight A student. So he was very intelligent, just chose when to show it, I guess.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. When did you guys get married?
We got married June 30th, 2012. So we were married for 3 years, and we passed.
I'm sorry. Can you talk a little bit, I know it's hard, but can you share a little bit about just when Kevin died and what those initial days and weeks were like for you?
Those initial days were very hard. I was numb for a while.
Yeah, it's kind of surreal. Yeah. So I know you reached out to me at some point. It was 9 or 10 months maybe after Kevin had died, and I was really grateful that we got to spend some time together, and I've got to spend time with you ever since then. So that's been great. And recently you joined a support group. What's that experience been like for you?
I think it's been so wonderful just being surrounded by other people who share similar loss and can relate. And the support group I'm in is a bunch of really strong women who believe in Christ, and it was a lot more people than I would have expected that had lost someone to suicide. But hearing everyone else's stories has really helped me heal, and just getting that support from everyone as well.
Awesome. Okay. So, Karen, let's talk about you a little bit and talk about your brother Butch.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me a little bit about what he was like and a little bit about what your journey has looked like after losing him?
Mm-hmm. So Butch was my big brother. He was about a year and a half older than me, and Butch was a smart aleck. He could kill a fly with a rubber band. He tortured most of his family with rubber bands during his teenage years. And our mom passed away when we were teenagers. Butch was 17 and I was 15. And so we sort of became this family of orphans. Our dad was in another country. And so we sort of raised each other. And then Butch got in the drift, and he was not present for us, and he attempted suicide this summer after my mom passed away, and he had some issues. We got him some mental health help, which at the time in the 70s was kind of cuckoo's nest-ish.
Yeah.
When he just was drugged up and making leather belts at therapy. And he got out, but he never really was the same after that. And so he lived with us, with my husband and I, and in 1979, he killed himself in our attic, and he killed himself in October, and we did not know he was up there. And we knew he was missing. We reported him missing, but we didn't know he was there until December 5th of that year.
I'm sorry.
Thanks.
I'm sorry. That must have been very difficult.
It was.
Yeah.
It still is. Even 38 years later, that not knowing piece of that life went on without him.
Right.
Under where he was. It still haunts me a little.
Yeah. Thank you. So, Karen, I know before I even met you, you knew Shannon. Tell me how you and Shannon knew each other. It's just one of those odd coincidence things that we're all here together now.
I don't believe in coincidences anymore. Shannon and I met because I am a writer and I have long wanted to write a book for suicide loss survivors from a long-term perspective, because the journey is different at 1 year or 5 years or 10 years or 15 or 20. And looking at it from this long-term perspective, I want suicide loss survivors to understand that there's life after this experience, and that there can be beautiful, full, rich life after this experience. So I put a thing on Facebook asking for suicide survivors to contact me. And I don't think Shannon contacted me directly, but we have a mutual friend.
Yeah.
Oh,
So we connected, and Shannon came over on a Saturday afternoon, and we talked. We clicked right away, and we had a really great conversation.
good.
Yeah. It was kind of strange.
Yeah.
My friend reached out to me and said, I have this other friend that's writing a book. They want survivors to explain their story, what happened, where they are today. Would you be interested? And I said, sure. And then,
Little
lo and
did you
behold,
know, a few years later, you were
here we are
gonna
again. Our
see each
paths
other
crossed again.
That's
Interesting
great.
too, Denise,
That's
that
great.
when I put that on Facebook, I got like 18 interviews scheduled in like 3 days,
Wow.
because people want to talk about their
Right.
stories. They want to talk about their stories to someone who's safe and someone who understands. And so it was just so interesting to me that that's what happened. And a lot of it happened that way, where a friend connected a friend.
Right. And I think the reason that I was so eager was suicide is such an ugly thing to society, and somebody wanted to write something positive about the survivors and talk about what we go through, to shed some light on making it not so ugly anymore,
Right.
and that life can continue even though this happened to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what intrigued me. And then of course when I met Karen, she's amazing. So
She
Aw.
is. She is. Shannon, tell me a little bit about Brian, how you
Oh.
guys met and when you got married.
you know, I think back to it's really a cute story. I was working at a tanning salon in a shopping plaza, and he got his hair cut next door, and he saw me through the window, and in his mind he said, I have to meet this girl. So he came in and bought a tanning packet and tanned for weeks upon weeks until he got up enough nerve to ask me out. Knocked everything off the counter when he went to ask me. Came up with this story that he forgot his wallet. So he came back in after tanning, went back in the room with him. We looked for it. I'm like, if I come across it, I'll let you know. And then we went back out, and he said, well, why don't you write my number down? So then I'm writing, and he's literally knocked everything off the counter. And then we just started talking at that point, and come to find out that he didn't even believe in tanning. So he would go back in the room and just sit and wait for the bed to come on and off, and then he would leave the room. He never actually tanned.
That's hilarious.
So yeah. So I don't want to say it was fate, because I don't know if I believe in that, but it was definitely a very unique and special way that we met.
So how long did it take from that time until the time you guys got married?
Oh wow. Let's see, that was at least a year and a half, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, I had just come out of another relationship, marriage, and so I was a little broken, but we just clicked and we got along really well, and he had a very dry but very funny sense of humor, but not everyone knew, because you'd have to get to know him before he would share that with you. He was a very reserved and quiet person, which is probably why suicide snuck up on us, is because you know, he was living in a dark place, but nobody knew it. So yeah.
Tell me a little bit about this log home that you guys
Oh,
built.
goodness gracious. So this goes in line with my husband, is he wanted privacy. So he wanted to live in the country, and he wanted to have property and land, and he wanted to be different. He never wanted to be just like everyone else. He didn't want to live in a cookie cutter house. So his parents built a log home in Montana. So that was it. That was his vision. That's what he wanted to do. So
we decided to build it, and we went and interviewed quite a few builders and the cost and what it. Long story short, his father said, "Well, I can be your contractor. We can just do this together." So our blood, sweat, and tears went into building this home ourselves. I laid tongue and groove flooring, I'll have you know. And I put in all of the electrical outlets.
Wow.
So I'm surprised the place is not burnt down yet. But
That's impressive.
But we did it side by side together. And there was long days, 6 a.m. to 6, 7 p.m. after working an 8-hour day in there, both of us. Weekends from 6 to midnight, both Saturday, Sunday. It was a lot of family bonding going on. A lot of little arguments. But it was a beautiful, and it is very beautiful.
That's good. Yeah. So Shannon, you said that Brian was kind of a little bit withdrawn and pretty even-keeled guy, it sounds like, and you said it kind of snuck up on you when he took his life. You didn't see this coming at all. Can you just share a little bit about that time of your life?
I mean, basically it was any other normal day for me, for us. And I had gone to play bingo with a friend, like I had done many other times in the past, and left him, and he was working on the house because that was a project that was never really complete, so we always had things to do. And sitting there playing bingo, and my phone rang, and it was my mother-in-law, and I was like, "Hey, how's it going?" She's like, "Where are you?" And I said, "Oh, I'm playing bingo." And she's, "Who are you with?" And I said, "I'm with my good friend Lori." And she said, "Well, can I talk to her?" And I go, "Sure." Not thinking anything's wrong, hand the phone to Lori, and Lori's a very quiet, reserved person herself. And she's like, okay. And she's packing up her stuff. And we just got to bingo, and she's packing up her stuff, and she's going, okay, bye. And at that point, my heart sunk because something wasn't right. And I said, "What's wrong?" And she said, "Well, we need to go." And I said, well, what do you mean we need to go? She goes, "Well, we just need to go." And I said, "Not till you tell me what's wrong." And she said, "Shannon, pack up your stuff. We need to go." And Lori doesn't raise her voice. Lori doesn't get stern. So then at that point, I started to feel the heat in my body and kind of shake, but not really shake. And so we get outside the hall, and I said, "I'm not taking another step till you tell me what's going on." And she said, "All I know is Brian's gone. He's dead." And we were standing there in the stairwell of the bingo hall, and I was like, "What?" And I instantly got angry that my mother-in-law didn't tell me. That you put my best friend in the position to share the most traumatic news to me, and she couldn't tell me herself. And I was so angry, instantly angry. And then she's like, "We need to go." And so then we get in the car, and there was a huge part of me that didn't believe her. Probably didn't want to believe her. And we then drove to the house, and then it became really real. And she never left my side, so yeah.
It's good to have a good friend like that.
Oh yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Support system was huge.
Good. Abby, talk to me a little bit about your support system after Kevin had died. I remember that you had just moved here. You hadn't lived in Columbus for very long. Tell me what your support system looked like.
My support system was pretty scattered. My family and Kevin's family were both, looking out for me a lot and there for me in ways they could be. And a lot of his friends from the military were, calling and checking up. And I think it was around his birthday that I felt like everyone was starting to forget about him. And that's when I reached out to you. And so then my support system started to look a little different.
That's great. I love that evening that we had at Panera. It was just good to connect with you. And it was good. I remember sitting there, and I remember you saying, "I just feel like everybody's moved on, and I'm still grieving." And that it had only been like 8 or 9 months. It hadn't even been a year yet, and you were already feeling that way. Yeah. And we've been friends ever since. Yes, that's awesome. Karen, what about you? I know it's been a while. and support must have looked a little different then, because suicide was more taboo 30
Mhm.
years ago. What did you do for support? How did you cope?
So I was 23 at the time. Butch was 25. And we lived in this old Victorian house in Michigan. And we lived there with my husband, his brother, my sister, this family of orphans, all living together and, raising each other basically. And it was my husband that found Butch. And as soon as that happened, my sister was 16. We left the house and went around the corner to a neighbor's.
Mm-hmm.
And then the police came and all of that transpired. We didn't have anything like loss. There was nobody to call.
Mm-hmm.
We wound up, my husband and my sister and I wound up in a Nights Inn motel that night with all three of us packed into one bed, shaking and crying and not really knowing what was going on. And from that point forward, I did find some counseling for myself and my sister, because we didn't have any after my mom passed. And I did have good friends around me who knew somebody, and we were able to get some counseling and to move forward in a better way. My husband didn't get counseling. My brother, who didn't live with us, he lived in another town, my younger brother, didn't get counseling. And neither of them dealt with it in quite the way that my sister and I did.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was the difference, that we had stepped into talking to someone and finding support.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, nobody talked about it.
Yeah.
And even now, I'll post something on Facebook and someone will say I didn't know that happened.
Yeah.
People who should, it was a small community, that people that you would think would know that, but because it was
so hush
hush,
Yeah.
we didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And even my dad, till the day he died, would not talk about it.
Wow. Shannon, tell me a little bit about the weeks and months following Brian's death, and what it looked like for you to get your feet back from under you.
Well, a lot like Abby's, very numb for a while there. I immediately went into, I've got all these stuff that has to be done. I have this brand new house, I have all these bills, I have to go to work, so I think I turned off my emotion for a while. I wouldn't let it surface. My personality, I don't like people to see me cry. So I don't like to break down in front of people. I didn't want them. I want when people see me to be happy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want them to be sad. I didn't want anyone to pity me or feel sorry for me. I know a lot of people empathize and sympathize with me, but so I think I faked a lot of my behavior for a while there.
That must have been hard.
It was exhausting. It does drain you completely. But I shifted my focus to, I've got to get things done. I've got tasks I have to do. I've got to get the house, the mortgage, to pay the bills. Everybody and their brother wanted a copy of a death certificate. And it was just, I went into that mode. And it took a while. And my parents were very concerned. And I also knew that physically I had to take care of myself, but I didn't really know how. But I knew I had to, so I reached out to my doctor and I said, here's what's going on. And so of course we talked about, do you need sleeping aids, because I wasn't sleeping, and we got myself on the right track physically. Then it was, okay, I know I'm going to emotionally snap at some point, so I should probably line up a counselor. So I'd already seen a counselor in the past, so I called her up and started my sessions. And at the point when I started, I really wasn't sharing. But I knew I needed to, but I just couldn't. But I knew I needed to build that relationship with her again to get that ball rolling. And then at some point, my friends and family thought the way to help was just to buy books, self-help books, books on suicide, things that you can do, the do's and the don'ts. And so I just really started educating myself. I thought, I'm not ready to face it, I'm not ready to focus on it, but let's just understand it some more. And that led to survivors of suicide support groups. So I went to a few of those, and I gained some insight on more so what I wanted for myself, and how I was going to get through this. So in seeing and learning about other people's experiences, just like Abby, it gave me comfort that I wasn't alone, but it also gave me direction. And then I just focused on that, and then eventually I gave into the emotion and I started to grieve. But I did it privately and in my counselor. So without that, and then my support group, my friends, my family played a huge role. And then I have a friend that lives out of state, and her friendship was the most unique during the process because she was pregnant, so she couldn't be here for me, but I could be there for her. So I would go down there, and after the baby was born, I was there. And her home became my safe haven because I could go down there and be myself and be however I was feeling without any sense of judgment from anybody. Nobody expected me to look or act or behave a certain way. I could just go and be, and it was amazing. When I had enough here and I was tired of faking it and I needed to just feel, I went there and I could just feel, and nobody knew. Nobody cared. So it was nice, and I think that helped in my healing journey as well.
Shannon, it's been how long now?
This month will be 7 years.
Yeah. And it's been 2 years since we met?
Probably, I was trying to remember that. It's probably been 2.
And I have to tell you that the place that you are now is completely different, in my experience of you, than it was when we met. There's a joy and a peace in you now that I didn't see then. Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. I mean, it's a journey, and you know, it never goes away. It's going to be a journey that will continue. I think all of you will agree with me for a long time, but my outlook is different now, and I have found peace, and I've started to love again. So
that's nice. So Abby, last spring actually, you shared in front of a lot of people very bravely about Kevin at our Bowl for Loss and Win event. What was that like for you?
When you asked me to do that, I had a really hard time writing the speech, and I put it off and then go back to it, and then put it off and go back to it. And I finally was in a place where I thought, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to honor Kevin and hopefully help other people by sharing my story. So then when I came to the event, I was really nervous, and sharing about Kevin felt really, really good to me because there aren't a lot of times when you can talk in front of a large group of people about your suicide loss and have people understand. So I felt like it was part of my healing journey to share and to then begin transitioning with the grieving and then into turning that pain into purpose and hopefully helping other people.
One of the things that really struck me when you shared, you talked about joy had begun to return and how it wasn't in place of the pain. You talked about the two things having to coexist. And I really identified with that. I was glad that you got to share that and that a lot of survivors there at the event got to hear that too. That was important. Thank you.
Yeah, you did great.
She did, didn't she? Abby, one of the things that you did not long after Kevin had died was you bought a dog.
I did.
Tell me a little bit about Panzer.
So it was a really spur of the moment thing. I had friends of a friend who, had this little puppy, 3 months old, and he needed a home. And I looked at this little puppy and I thought, I have a home and I wanted some movement in my house again. And I named my dog Panzer because my husband was really into World War II, really into the German aspects, had a German last name. So I named my dog Panzer, which means tank. And it was a really healing experience for me. And I know it sounds really silly, but having this dog and this little thing that I had to take care of, and that was my responsibility, it felt so good. And I remember every day after work, I would just cry on the way home because I was just so drained. And after I got my dog, I just stopped crying on the way home from work. I was excited to go home. There's something waiting for me that needed me.
Nice. So Karen, you and I met, gosh, a year and a half ago now, I guess. I posted something on the Lost Facebook page looking for somebody that was a suicide loss survivor and was a writer. And you responded and we met. It's just wild to me that that's been a year and a half. I feel like I've known you forever.
Right?
I feel like
And
I've
we
known you
met
forever.
at coffee.
Of course.
And by the time we were done, you had asked me to be on your board and write your newsletter. And I came to you because losing someone to suicide is such a singular experience. It informs your life in a way that no other experience has ever informed mine. And I found in that journey over all these years that somehow I collect other suicide loss survivors. It's like almost like we recognize something in each other. And so I've always wanted to give back because being a vehicle, standing as source of healing for someone else's journey is important. It's important to me to be able to stand as source and to be able to say, hey, hi, I've been at this for 38 years and I'm whole and I'm healthy and I'm healed and I still miss my brother. But when I heard what you were doing, I was like, well, sweet, I can get behind that. And here we are, a year and a half later.
That's great. So Abby, just a few months ago, you came to a loss training, a volunteer training, which was such a blessing for me personally. I've been with you since the beginning, and it's just really, it was amazing just to see you there at the training. Tell me a little bit about how you came to the decision to get involved and what it's been like since.
So when you reached out and asked for volunteers, it just seems like a really good time that I was ready to start giving back, and I felt like I was more whole than I was 2 years ago. And the recent event that we did, I left feeling like I got more out of it than I gave. So I loved being there, and I loved, helping people make their boxes. It was very healing for me to be on the other side of that role.
That's great. I know it was really special to Holly, who you connected with there, for her to get to meet somebody that was walking a similar journey with your husband being in the military. So she really appreciated that. That's awesome. Shannon, what about you? You've done some hotline work.
Yes.
I imagine, are there a lot of suicide loss survivors that get involved with the hotline?
There are. When my husband died, I wanted to help because I couldn't help him. So I searched online, found the hotline. So that too is a healing process for me because I talked to people that were wanting to die, and it helped give perspective. And I knew that if I talked to one person and made a difference in their life, I came home with such achievement. And then the people that I worked with, the people that I met there, amazing, giving, and I'm still friends with them today. I've gone and done overnight walks in other states with some of them just to bond together. And once again, knowing that I can talk to them. If I'm having a bad day, they've got my back. They understand. I don't have to explain myself. and they listen, and then we can laugh together. And then so I went through all this training about how to talk to people proactively about, you know, them not wanting to kill themselves. Then that's when I learned about loss and kind of what happens after suicide. And so at first I thought, this is good for me. I'm gonna switch gears, and I'm gonna try to help people that are going through what I went through, because now I feel like I can. Now I feel like I can tell my story and hopefully make a difference. With the hotline, I'm telling people there's hope, that they need to live, that I'll be there for them if they want to live. Now I'm telling people, just because you lost somebody, you can still live too. So it was a different message. It was a shift for me. And so that's why it brought me to loss, is I want to help those people that really are going through what I've been through, and just have a whole new family
Yes.
that I can share
Yeah.
with. Anytime I'm feeling down, I can pick up the phone and say, Denise, Karen, Abby, I really need your help today, because I'm really mad that Brian did what he did, and you need to help me. And then I'm great again. And then I can be that person for somebody else.
I think about that. I think about the people that I've met, the three of you, and just so many others. And I hate what brought us together, but I can't imagine my life without you guys in it. I really can't. It's just so uplifting and encouraging. I'm just really grateful for all of you. Thank you.
And we're grateful for you for creating loss.
Yeah.
Thank you. So something that we're doing this year that's a little bit different than in the past. So for 2018, we're really looking at being deliberate about what is our focus in 2018. We're really looking at being a community of hope. So transitioning from a community of loss to a community of hope. And I'm just curious, this is the first time I think some of you, or a few of you have heard this anyway.
Yeah.
Karen's heard it. What do you think about that? Does that resonate with you?
I think it does. I think it encourages people.
Good.
I would be intrigued if I was to start the process all over again, and I saw a community of hope versus survivor. I don't want to be labeled a survivor, in a sense. I want to know that there's something more for me.
Yeah, thrive.
So I think it's sending a very positive message. I like it.
It's good.
I agree. I think it's very positive. I don't think I heard that word enough when I was first grieving.
Yeah.
And I needed to hear it a lot more than it was out there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm really excited about 2018. We've got some exciting things we're going to be able to do together on this journey. And I know it'll include tears, and I know parts of it will be painful. But I also know that we've got each other, and we continue to get through it.
And thrive.
And thrive, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.